All right, here we go. Freeway Ricky Ross, welcome back.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of times now here.
Yeah, we do. This is a big one though. The time is different than I ever seen it before in my life.
Well, than anyone's seen it in anyone's lives that's living right now. We haven't had a pandemic of this caliber since the Black Plague,
Yeah.
hundreds of years ago, basically.
Yeah.
Where it's just scattering all over the whole globe. There's no real cure in sight. People are terrified.
Well, they're saying now maybe Cuba might have a cure.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we read it. I've been hearing the rumors for a couple days that Cuba had been over in China, helping China. And today we pulled the article up and they were talking about, Cuba just took the ship from Great Britain. They let them dock, and the ship has been out in the sea, I think, for about 2 months. And so Cuba decided to bring it in. And the only reason that I would think that they would bring it in is because they know something that everybody else don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking online. I don't see anything about a cure in any of the news agencies or anything else like that. Not to say it's not going on, but none of the major outlets are covering it right now.
Yeah, and I understand that too. Most of the major outlets are not ready to make some of the harsh decisions that needs to be made. I'm looking at the news every day, and I'm like, what the hell are they doing? We should have been on lockdown 4 weeks ago. As soon as I mean, really, we should have sent scientists and doctors over to China immediately to not only help China but to investigate. And by going over helping, you would have been investigating at the same time, learning what it is, how it's affecting people, and I believe that would have prepared us for what we have to do better than what is taking place. I mean, now it's almost to a point now here in America where the way it hit, I can't think of the name of it, whatever the town is in Shanghai in China.
Wuhan.
Wuhan.
Yeah.
The way it hit Wuhan now, it may hit New York, L.A., Chicago, and all these places all at the same time. And our system is not prepared for it. We've been living like fat cats. Like everything is okay. We got everything under control. And our president has been telling us that, which has been sending mixed emotions to a lot of people. And just so many rumors out here, about it. People were coming up to me just last week telling me, "Oh, why are you tripping? It don't even affect blacks."
Right. Waka Flocka did an interview where he basically said that black people or minorities can't get the coronavirus. And this was right before 3 basketball players came up positive for it, all of them black.
Yeah. So, it's just so much stuff out there that's not being said and not being done. And if we don't make some serious actions, this could be, a serious problem for the whole country, the whole world.
Yeah, I mean, it is a problem for the whole world. Italy is on 24-hour lockdown. I believe Spain is in the same boat right now.
Yeah.
They're saying Germany is going to be the next big one affected.
I heard that as well.
Yeah.
Well, China is helping Italy now.
I bet.
Yeah, so they've learned, and that's what's so crazy. It's like this is a time where you put down your differences. Whatever I'm communist. You capital, whatever that is. The differences. This is not the time to settle those differences. This is a time that it's a global threat. Some people estimated the U.S. could lose 2 million people.
Yeah, I read the same thing. I read 3 million actually, because the fatality rate is about 2%. But you got to really look at those numbers with a grain of salt, because it only really affects people that are much older, in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And roughly 2 to 3 million people die every year in America because of old age and illness associated with old age. So you have to sort of, a lot of that overlaps.
Right.
So it's not like 3 million more people will die. It's like there's going to be 3 million people dying, and some of those people that are dying already might have the process sped up a little bit because if they catch coronavirus in an already fragile state. So,
and then it could speed up the other people who didn't die when they got it now, but they come back a couple years later and get you then. So we don't. It's just not enough known about it.
They just started human trials, I believe, in Canada. The first human vaccine trial has started, but it's going to be around 12 months before it's actually could be released. At the very earliest, 12 months before it can get released to the public. And that is if this particular vaccine actually works.
Right, if it doesn't have any side effects.
Right, because you and I are old enough to remember the AIDS epidemic and the scare.
Nothing like this, though.
Right, because you actually had to have sex in order to get it.
Right.
Walking down the street, you can't just get AIDS. Although back then, if you remember, there was a lot of paranoia. You were worried. Like, back then, you were scared to hug a person that was HIV positive.
For sure.
You were scared.
I agree.
You were scared to kiss a person who was HIV positive. You were scared. People were scared to be in the same room.
Scared to eat after.
Eat
after.
In
the restaurant where they ate out of a plate, out of a spoon.
Yeah, it was very much. Yeah, people that were HIV positive in the 80s really had it bad.
Well, this disease though, it kills like AIDS. They said a friend of mine who is one of the top trauma surgeons maybe in the world. He contacted me from my boxing. He saw me boxing with the boxers, and he contacted me, and he wanted to start helping the boxers. He's was a brain surgeon at Morehouse University, and he said that he can help the boxers with their brain loss, memory loss, and clear their minds up. And it's funny that as soon as we started talking, this epidemic broke out. Right around the same time. And I started asking him about it. And he started telling me some of the things about it, that it had the characteristics of a common cold, but it killed like AIDS. And for me, that was like, wow. So you're saying that somebody could sneeze on a doorknob and then you could pick up something almost as deadly as AIDS, was mind-boggling. Like, wow.
Yeah, this is Dr. Leslie Matthews.
Yeah.
Right, who we're actually going to be interviewing shortly.
Good, I think so. I think the country should be listening to him. He makes a lot of sense. We had did some talks, and he was telling me about how he's probably dealt with more people with respiration sickness than probably anybody in this country or maybe anybody in the world.
Right, and that's what coronavirus really hits. If you get the standard coronavirus, it's just like a regular cold. You might have some fever or headaches or whatever, but if it gets into your respiratory system, that's where the real problems start. And
exactly.
That's where the fatalities start and so forth.
Exactly. And the only way that I see us getting rid of it is we have to shut it down. We have to stop moving around. We have to stop touching each other. And I see that some of the states are really putting in some stiff guidelines.
Yeah, San Francisco's on a 24-hour lockdown for 3 weeks right now.
Well, I feel the whole country should be on a 24-hour lockdown. I mean, we all should make a sacrifice and say, you know what, everything that I have going on right now can wait, so that, it may not hurt the strong, it may not. Even though there's some people that say that it wreaks havoc on your lungs, even if you get over it. Some people that are strong, your lungs lose 20% of its capability. And some doctors are saying that you may get it back, but it's still up in the air. They're saying that people who smoke cigarettes are at danger, So not just the old and the weak. It says some people that smoke cigarettes are still strong, that don't really show the symptoms.
Yeah. The whole VladTV staff is now working remotely from home. And all of my employees have full health insurance that I pay for. So we're doing our part. with my crew to try to help out to the best of my ability. I mean, it's tough. I was just talking about it this morning. Like, as a leader, you have to be the brave one and the one to kind of reassure everyone that it's going to be okay. And sometimes you're freaking out yourself.
Right.
But you're the one that has to show everyone, like, okay, look, we're still going to go forward. We're going to take precautions, but bills will get paid. Your paychecks will be intact. There'll be a roof over your head.
Well, it looks like they're going to stop all that, though. I think right now, if somebody didn't pay their mortgage, didn't pay their rent, there's nothing nobody can do because the courts are closing down. So there's not going to be a judge. There's not going to be a marshal. There's not going to be anybody to enforce any of the laws for a few months. We don't know how long.
Yeah, I mean, Italy is actually allowing people to stop paying their mortgages right now. That's already started in other countries. And yeah, I mean, how are you going to evict somebody?
Yeah, who are you going to send out there?
Yeah, and it's tough. Like, as a business owner, I have an office that I pay a lot of money for every month, and we are going to be doing some shoots there. But in general, I'm paying for an empty office.
Right.
And that's just the reality of life right now.
But they should do that. Right now, everybody should take on that same mentality that right now everything has to stop.
Yeah.
The world just, I mean, it's literally, because I had some deals that I had pending. I had some things I've been working on for 10 years was just getting ready to materialize. And then all of a sudden, this hit, but I understand it's better, even if I had to start over from scratch, than to get sick and to infect my loved ones. I have a couple uncles and aunties that's up in age, and I would hate to be the one who killed them. And literally, that's what it would be if you go out and you catch the virus and you bring it back to somebody that you care about or that you love, or even if it's somebody you don't care about, you don't even know them.
Right.
It would be the same thing. Now you're going around. I was in Dallas a few weeks ago, and maybe like 3 weeks ago, and I felt so guilty, because I had started to study the way the virus was transparent, and even though I'd already had agreed to go and do this event, and I felt obligated to doing it, but while I was out and I'm touching all these people and I'm meeting all these people, and could only think is, what if I was infected, and I was just getting over a cold that had lasted like a month, and I was saying that if I would have been infected, how many people would I have infected from taking 200 or 300 pictures, shaking all these different people's hands, and I would have felt terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Utah Jazz's Rudy Gobert, he was making jokes about the coronavirus. He was like touching all the microphones and kind of trolling the press and so forth. And he was the first person to come back positive. And he shut down the entire NBA season single-handedly. Not to say someone else might not have gotten it along the way, but he got 2 other people infected. He got another guy on his team and then another guy on Detroit that was playing against him that had been like playing hard against him during the game. The 2 of them are positive. And then a kid who got an autograph from one of them came back positive. The way this thing spreads is really kind of crazy.
It is. And that's why we have to shut down. We have to take it serious. And one of my fears is in the black community, we don't travel much. We don't get to see people from different parts of the country as much as other people, and a lot of it is because of our income status. But eventually, it's going to find its way into the inner cities. And once it does, if we're not taking this serious, we're going to be hit harder than anybody. In Italy, doctors are having to make a decision on who live and who die, who get the respirator and who don't get the respirator. So I wouldn't want to be laying there having a doctor to decide if I should live or if this other guy should live or this other lady should live. I don't want to be in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I know my dad passed a few months ago, and he had Parkinson's, which started affecting his breathing. So he would stop breathing. They'd have to put a tube down his throat. Then they would take it out. And then he would kind of be okay. And then he would fall back and he would get sick and they would try to resuscitate him. And then I finally had to make the decision that if he had to have a respirator down his throat again, that we would let him pass. Because the doctor and I had long conversations where he explained to me that if he had to go under the respirator one more time, he wasn't going to recover. So as opposed to having him suffer, I had to make, because my mother was just messing up. Like I had to take the reins on his health.
Tough decision.
It's a very tough decision because you think like, did I kill my dad? Could he have potentially
made it
after that and maybe got a few more months? And it's something that still bothers me today. But breathing is a very delicate thing, and the technology they have these days, I mean, it does work, but it's pretty barbaric. They literally have to stick a huge plastic tube down your throat, and in the process, they could tear up your throat and everything else like that. It's something very delicate. Human science hasn't caught up as much as we think it has, and people are going to be affected by this. I mean, since our last interview, you turned 60 years old.
I did.
Congratulations. Happy birthday, belated. And, I'm 46 myself. You start looking at these numbers and you look at the percentages based on age, and it kind of starts to freak you out sometimes.
It does. I think about, where I fit into that number, my friends, they tease me though and say, oh, well, you really 49. Your age is just that because, you've taken good care of yourself, don't smoke, don't drink, exercise, eat right. But at the end of the day, will all that pan out, you never know.
You never know. You never know. The thing is also that people have to realize is that the 2% fatality rate is based on people they've tested. And right now in America, to get a coronavirus test is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult. I know people who have colds who have been to the doctor multiple times because they're worried, and both times they were told we can't give you a COVID-19 test, that you don't match certain criteria. Your fever is not high enough, you haven't come in contact with someone who's positive. So you have all these people that have it but can't get a test or aren't showing symptoms and aren't taking a test.
And they say it might take 7 days to start showing symptoms.
You got to throw that into the mix. So I think the fatality rate is actually less than what people think it is. I think it's more like 0.2 or 0.02%. But at the end of the day, there is still, when you're facing the possibility of death, people take it very seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, in positive news, I heard the marijuana delivery business is booming right now.
Yeah, I hear it is too. I'm not in it yet.
So you haven't started yet?
I haven't started yet. They were supposed to give our license out on the 19th of this month. So I was waiting patiently for that. But that's probably going to be put on hold because the DRC, nobody's in the office right now. They're only taking phone calls. So it's kind of like, my life was put on hold anyway. A lot of the things that I've been working for, the Hall of Flowers, we were going to debut at the Hall of Flowers this month and the first of next month, rather, and really kind of give people a glimpse of what is to come. And it was canceled as well.
Yeah, I had a live show with Lord Jamar in New York on April 5th. And last I checked, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Broadway is shut down, so a Vlad and Lord Jamar show clearly is not a priority right now in New York.
Well, I'm glad that that me and you were able to get together because I thought it was very important that the inner city, get an idea of what's going on with it, because a lot of times, we're fighting with the president saying one thing, doctors saying one thing, and people not really knowing who to believe or what to believe. So I felt that it was important that I lend my voice to the conversation. From what I have been doing, I've been knowing about this for about a month and a half now. When it was first brought to my attention. So I feel that I've been studying it more than a lot of people, because I always want to know what's going on in my life and in my world, and I saw this as being something that would be possibly a turning point, and it's bigger than what I thought it was.
Yeah, no one anticipated it. The stock market knew about it for a month and didn't really do anything, and then once it finally hit, we're seeing like 30-40% drops in the stock market. My portfolio looks crazy right now, to say the least. There were a couple of times where I thought, let me just sell everything and go in cash, but I didn't do it. But yeah, I mean, companies are really going to get decimated. Like companies that are already kind of on the verge of bankruptcy, like a lot of the retailers, like the Sears and the J.C. Penney's that already are kind of messed up, are probably going to go under completely because of this.
The food companies are doing great numbers.
Food companies doing great. Amazon's probably going to be doing great. Amazon just announced that they will no longer be taking items from sellers that are non-essential house goods anymore, because Amazon has sold out of toilet paper and paper towels and disinfectants and hand soap and stuff like that, because so many people are hoarding all these things. They came in and just bought out 100 rolls of toilet paper, and there's 3 people in their house, and it's really kind of messing up. Like I'm really starting to really hate people like this when I really think about it, because you go to the store and you can't get toilet paper. Like I know people who don't have toilet paper in their house. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
It sounds funny, like, oh, what's the big deal? But when you really don't have toilet paper in your house, it kind of affects your life.
Absolutely, because you've been using toilet paper all your life.
Your entire life, and suddenly, well, do you use paper towels? Because if you flush those down the toilet, then it's going to clog up your toilet. Do you throw them in the garbage? It sets up a very serious problem. And yeah, I really hate the people that are doing this right now, because there's the same number of people in America. So there's no reason to have these insane shortages. It's people are just hoarding it for themselves. So you're seeing this crazy kind of mentality. Just recently, we did a story that over 1,000 prisoners from Brazil actually escaped over the whole coronavirus situation. Like you literally see them running down the street. They overwhelmed the prison and they escaped. I believe in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Well, they just let a lot of people out here, the county jail in L.A.
I heard about this.
People that was 30 days from being released, they let them out, because you could imagine if it hit our jail population.
And that's what I was about to say. What happens when the penitentiaries are hit with coronavirus, which will probably happen?
It's going to be ugly.
Because I've been in jail here and there, but I've never been in a penitentiary. How clean are penitentiaries?
They keep the penitentiaries pretty clean. But being clean is not going to stop something that the guy sleeping on top of you sneezes, and when he sneezes, all of his fluids pretty much spread the whole room. You're talking about you living in a room about 4 by maybe 8 feet. So when he sneezes, you're going to inhale some of his bacteria. Or if he sneezes, it gets on the toilet or the sink or whatever. When I was in jail, a common cold could go around the penitentiary for a month or 2 months. One guy catches it, then he gives it to another guy, then I get it again, then I give it to somebody else, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, then I catch it again because he just caught it. So it goes around. It's like it constantly lives because each person just keeps passing it around and it never actually dies.
Yeah.
Which is why I believe so much that a total lockdown is what it's going to take.
They're comparing it to SARS, which is also a coronavirus, which is a much more deadlier version of it. And I was reading an article about this, about how whether, because it's like a season, it is somewhat of a seasonal flu kind of thing. And they're trying to figure out whether it'll die down once the weather gets warmer. And with SARS, that did start to happen somewhat. But there's a couple of very key differences, is that with SARS, once you're infected, you start showing symptoms right away. Mm-hmm. And in the places where SARS broke out, it didn't die a natural death. There was very, very heavy human involvement, like almost draconian levels of involvement that really just locked down and killed the disease by completely isolating the people and making sure it didn't spread past a certain number of people. And that's why they were able to actually get rid of it.
And that's what I believe we should be doing right now.
Yeah. There's a little trickier because Idris Elba, he just announced that he was positive.
Yeah, I saw
for coronavirus, but he said he has no symptoms.
I saw it on the news today.
Tom Hanks and his wife.
Yeah, they were released from the.
They were just released
from the hospital.
A lot of people don't have symptoms. Some of these basketball players don't have symptoms, so you're kind of in a weird state. We had just posted on Vlad Stocks. I'd posted it was basically a big conference call with Goldman Sachs that looked at this from a financial level, because Goldman Sachs have billions and billions of dollars that they're managing for people. So what they say is that based on the way it spreads, they think that around 50% of the population in America will eventually get it, which is similar to how often people get colds.
Yeah, I heard that on the news as well.
Most people will get a cold 2 to 4 times a year, which sounds about right. But in general, it's going to be very mild symptoms. For example, in the UK, they're not doing any quarantining at all. Their take is, we'll just let everyone get it, and then once you get it once, you become immune to it.
Hopefully. They don't know that, though.
They don't know. There's going to be different trains of thought in terms of how to do it, and countries, who's ever in charge of these various countries are going to figure out how to set up their policies. So we don't know. It's very new.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very, very new.
And then Great Britain just left a Great Britain boat. They left it out in the water for 2 months. So are they practicing the way that it should be practiced? My opinion is that it would be better to quarantine than to take a chance and see, and guess. I mean, we're going to have enough people with it already to figure out, how it works. So why infect everybody else? Why infect the whole country, or half the country, 50% of the country even?
How much do you think this will become a class issue? Because when you look at the lower classes, they usually get hit the hardest with everything.
Well, we know the hospitals in the ghettos are not equipped. They're not going to have the respirators to take care of everybody for sure. The rich areas, the areas with the money, saying that they don't have it. So the urban communities are going to get towed up, and especially when you're believing the way we're believing now. I had a friend call me the other day. When was that? Saturday. He called me from Atlanta, Georgia, and his record dropped, and he was saying that they were playing in the clubs in Atlanta, and he went to 5 clubs, and he said all the clubs were packed. And I'm like, what? All the clubs are packed? Don't they know that this thing is out here and that it's being passed around? And he passed that word, oh, well, blacks ain't getting it. So I'm like, what? Are you crazy? This thing don't have no race or no class. Now, when you go see the doctor, race and financial and all that and class may come into play, but with this bug has one job, and that's to kill.
Well, yeah. Remember when AIDS first came out? What was everyone saying? It's a gay disease.
Yeah.
If I'm straight and I don't get
I
anal
don't
sex
qualify.
from a man, then it can't happen to me. Women were especially saying this. Well, I'm married. My husband is straight, which isn't always the case. So you had a situation where women became the highest victims of HIV because it was easier for a heterosexual woman to get it from a man than a heterosexual man to get it from a woman. And the black community got hit really hard. Black women have a disproportionate number of HIV cases compared to other races.
Yeah, well, they had guys when I was in prison most of the time when that was out. So um, I read about it, and I read about guys that was just going around, just giving it to people, just giving it to women. And I read about women who did the same thing, went around and gave it to men, as I guess as a payback or whatever, um, out of spite that they had gotten it. Um, and hopefully that don't happen with this right here. Hopefully we'll all be responsible enough to say, let's button it down.
Well, yeah, and I talked about this in a bunch of my shows that, for example, when you talk about HIV, and I just want to set up a few parallels here, there's a drug called Truvada, which is an HIV prevention medicine, which you could get a doctor to prescribe to you, and health insurance will cover pretty much the whole thing. And if you take it as a daily pill, you're like 99% less likely to get HIV if you come in contact with someone who has it. No one takes it. No one wants to take it. There's no real side effects. I know people who take it, but most people don't even care. And how many people are out there having sex without condoms, without tests? No, their partner's not getting tested. One night stand, meet someone at the club, go back, have unprotected sex. Then you don't get tested for another year or two, so you don't even know what your status is. It's pretty scary. It's pretty scary.
Reckless.
Yeah, and I think having celebrities get it was a big wake up call. First Tom Hanks, then Idris Elba. So then people couldn't say, "Oh, it's just a white thing." But the thing is that no celebrity has died from it. If Tom Hanks died from coronavirus, the whole world would be freaking out right now.
I agree. I totally agree. But they also got to remember, they were saying on the news that how these ball players getting tested. How did Tom Hanks get tested when the common person can't?
Exactly.
So right there should open up some eyebrows, like, what's going on here? How are these people with money or celebrity status getting tested? And the regular people can't. And it was good. One of the congresswomen, she was arguing a couple weeks ago with the guy from the CDC about everybody being able to get medical assistance. No matter what your status is or what your religious background, if you're American, you should be getting treatment if you need it. And she finally got the guy to agree to those terms.
Yeah. Well, we just posted up a story. Carrie Hilson had a set of tweets that she has since deleted, where she claimed that 5G cell service was causing the virus. And you're going to get all these crazy conspiracy theories.
Misinformation.
Yeah.
Which is,
I can't imagine cell phones somehow causing a virus. Like, that doesn't even make any type of... I mean, the science classes I took through high school will let me know that is completely impossible. But here you have someone who has platinum records is out there spreading this type of misinformation.
Well, just because people can sing and dance and shoot basketballs don't make them smart or intelligent. Right. As we can see with our president, he's dropped the ball quite a few times, in my personal opinion. and he gave himself a 10 the other day.
Of course he did.
The way he's been handling it. But in my personal opinion, when the first case hit, the first person that they knew, the person should have been all over the news, asking everybody, if you've seen this person, if you've been around this person, please call this number immediately. And from that point on, anybody that was coming from the infected area or areas should have been quarantined and tested. We should have definitely had enough tests to test them. And the other thing I heard, that instead of them using other countries' tests, they said Germany had a test that they had been using. We didn't use that test. We wanted to make our own test, which took quite a bit of time to create. When what we could have did was been buying Germany's test, so that we could have been making sure that new infections didn't come into the community. I mean, how much easier would it have been if the person that they first found would have been? I know that person would have had to been willing to say, okay, you can use my face and you can put me on TV, and we'll ask everybody that had saw me or sit on the airplane with me or rode the bus with me to please call in. I mean, just those kind of steps with technology that we have right now, it would have been so much easier to kind of curtail it,
Well, based on human history and based on human beings in general, I feel that we'll eventually get over it. It may take a couple of months, it may take longer, but we'll eventually get over it.
I agree.
Yeah. And it's now a
some of us.
Yeah.
Some of us will.
Some of us will.
Some people that's living and breathing right now not going to make it.
Not going to make it. And right now it's a pandemic, but at some point it could be something called an endemic, which means it's something that just permanently circulates through the human population, like HIV. HIV can be controlled through drugs. There's tests for it. But at the end of the day, there's new HIV cases that are happening today as we speak, all over the world. So maybe one of those things where, look, pockets of it will still happen. They may find a vaccine at one point, or they might find a treatment, because they already have treatments that they're already using from like Gilead Sciences and stuff like that, which may or may not work. They're using HIV treatments for certain patients and so forth. So they may get it down to like, okay, if you get it, we know how to treat it. And
right.
most
You're
people,
not going to die.
You're not going to die, or most people won't die unless there's underlying conditions. But it may just end up being one of those things where this is permanently part of humans.
With us.
Yeah, forever.
It's not going anywhere.
An endemic is what they call it. I want to switch gears a little bit. Recently, Nathaniel Woods was executed. Do you know about this story?
Yeah, I heard about that. A little, not a whole lot though.
So Nathaniel Woods was from Alabama. He was involved with a murder, but he wasn't actually the trigger man. The trigger man actually came forward and said that Nathaniel had nothing to do with it. He took full responsibility for it, but they still turned around and executed him. Black man in Alabama, I believe he shot like three white people. Number one, how do you feel about the death penalty?
I think the death penalty has been used racially. You're more likely to die on death row if you're a black man and you kill a white man or a white woman than any other person. It's tough, because we know there's been people who've been misidentified, in those situations. We've had people that have been positively identified, and then later on DNA come back and say that it wasn't that person. So until you can get all the kinks out, I don't think that the death penalty is something that should be used.
Yeah, I mean, even the whole concept of picking someone out of a lineup. 60 Minutes did reports on it that showed that this is grossly inaccurate. Like, the guy that you came in with today, if he robbed me and they asked me to point him out of a lineup and they put 5 other people that look similar to him, I don't think I would pick the right person because I just saw him for, a minute or two.
And you were terrified.
Yeah.
He had a gun in your face.
He had a gun in my face.
You probably saw more of the barrel than you saw of anything. And the bullets, because I've had a gun put in my face. And I know that when you do that, you're able to look at the bullets, the trigger, and you can see all of it. You know, the barrel gets real big. When that barrel is in your face, it's real big. And it kind of blocks your vision. Kind of like the saying, you can't see the forest for the tree.
Yeah, but to pick someone out of a lineup and you put other people that look similar to that person, and you pick the wrong person, and that person is going to death row, or that person is doing life in prison, or whatever else, and it's really just your word against theirs, and there's no witnesses, there's no proof, it's just picking someone out, I almost feel that you should not get the death penalty in a case like that, if that's the only proof that you have.
If the cops are just trying to solve the case. There's been so many cases where the cops literally just want to put somebody in jail.
Central Park 5. I interviewed 2 of them. That was a perfect example of, look,
Malcolm X.
A white woman
Malcolm X's murder.
Malcolm X's murder.
I just watched a documentary while I was on lockdown the other day.
Yeah, I watched that too. Yeah, I talked to the guy who helped put it together also.
Yeah.
But I just want to touch on the Central Park thing. Here you have New York City, 1980s, a white woman gets brutally raped and beaten to the point where she can't even remember what happened. And everyone wants to know who did it. Donald Trump is taking out full-page ads calling for the death penalty of these 5 kids because they just want to have closure to it. And they were really doing some messed up things like Corey Wise. I think the cops pushed him into some of the items, so some of his DNA gets onto the items so they could positively ID it and so forth. This happens all the time. I mean, do you feel that in general there should not be a death penalty, period, for anything?
Death penalty it's a tough. I don't think so. I don't think that we should take an eye for an eye, as they say, and especially if it's not used equally and fairly. If a white guy kills a black guy, he doesn't get the death penalty. And
not always. I mean, is Dylan Roof getting the death penalty?
I don't know who that is. I'm not
sure. The guy who killed all those black people in the church.
I don't think he did.
Let me see.
I'm not sure, but I don't believe he did. He's federally, that was federal, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's getting the death penalty.
He's getting the death penalty?
He's getting the death penalty. He walked into a church and just killed a whole bunch of people. Just in hopes to start a race war, basically.
But most of the time, it doesn't. I mean, I haven't been doing law for a long time, but when I was doing the law, it's a fact that most of the time that a person is getting the death penalty, it's a black guy who kills a white guy. That's like a fact,
When you were locked up, were you allowed to talk to death row inmates at all, or are they totally separate from everyone else?
From us.
Okay, yeah. So you can't even have a conversation with them.
No, there's not many death penalty cases in the feds.
It's a state thing.
It's a state thing, more of a state. The feds, they don't kill. I think the last one the feds killed might have been the guy the Oklahoma bomber.
Timothy McVeigh.
Timothy McVeigh. So we don't get to see those guys often in the feds.
Well, Tukey Williams got the death penalty.
That was state.
Yeah. How well did you guys know each other?
I didn't really know Tukey. I mean, I seen him, but we had never talked or had a conversation or nothing like that there.
Did you know anyone who you personally knew who got the death penalty?
No.
Mm-mm,
nobody.
Life in prison, though, that's a different story.
Yeah, a lot of people with life in prison.
Right. Yeah, I remember Mark Lamont Hill came on my show, and we debated, and I was pro-death penalty, and he was against it, and he broke it down pretty well to me, because he had he had been discussing this a lot longer than I have. I was just going from the gut. And he basically said that if they get it wrong with just one person, they should throw the whole thing away. I don't believe in nonviolence. I do believe in an eye for an eye. I do believe that if you commit murder, you should walk into that situation knowing that you might get the death penalty, that you might die in the process. If someone pulls out, because you're a gun owner yourself, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm not nonviolent. Let me be clear. My opposition to the death penalty isn't that I feel like there's no appropriate time for violence. Let me be clear. My opposition to the death penalty is rooted in a few things. One, we get it wrong way too often. It's a technological argument, right? We swear people did it until we find out they didn't, right? And we've had too many cases where we were convinced somebody did it until they didn't do it, right? Except they're dead. So if you say, yeah, but the Charleston shooter, we have no doubt he did it, that's such a small number of people that we can't make public policy around that.
Well, the law says that it's better for a guilty man to go free than for an innocent man to go to prison. So with that being said, is that the forefathers felt leaning more toward not sending an innocent man to jail or to death row than to punish somebody for committing a crime. They felt that it was a greater loss for somebody to be executed or in prison when they were actually innocent.
Right. You talk about the whole Malcolm X documentary. One of the guys that was accused of shooting Malcolm X.
Two of the guys.
One of the guys got out.
The other one died in prison.
Yeah, the other guy's still in prison. One of the guys got out, and he said, I had nothing to do with this.
Two of the guys said that.
And
the guy who actually did the shooting
got away with it.
No, he went to prison. One went to prison. Not the guy who killed him.
Yeah, well, the guy with the shotgun.
The guy with the shotgun.
Yeah, but he didn't go to prison for that.
He didn't go to prison.
He went to prison for something else.
He did.
Yeah.
But two guys went to prison who shouldn't have been in prison, who said that they weren't even in the building. And people who knew them said that they weren't in the building because they wouldn't have let them in the building because they knew that they didn't like Malcolm X.
Right.
So they wouldn't have never let them in the building. We found out that in that documentary that the FBI had 9 informants inside the building who could positively identify everybody who did everything. Also, the NYPD, who had Malcolm X's bodyguard, was the NYPD. He was a police officer working undercover.
Right, exactly.
So he saw everything that happened. He never testified, never came in to identify the shooters or the non-shooters. So they literally let innocent people go to prison.
I think it's another case of we just want to make the public happy. Yeah. Look, we got them. Case closed. All right, you guys happy? They're all in jail. Doesn't matter if it's the right ones, the wrong ones. A bunch of people are in jail for it. They've been, they pleaded out or they were found guilty in the court of law.
We did our job.
We did our job.
Pat me on the back.
Right. Give me my raise. I want my pension.
Yeah.
Reelect me.
And too often that happens.
Yeah.
In the black community, and I mean it probably happens with other people, but when cops are dealing. When you're dealing with people, and some of my friends say, "Man, you sound like a racist," and I don't mean to sound like a racist because I'm not a racist. But the evidence is what it is. If you talk about the evidence, then that's what it is. A cop would be more likely to arrest a black. Even in the weed business, I'm talking to some of these guys now who literally run the weed business, and they'll be like, "Oh, I never went to jail. Made millions and millions of dollars selling weed, and you never went to jail." Well, I know why, because the cop might pull them over and they got a pound of weed, and they take the weed and say, "Oh, boy, quit selling weed," and let them go. But if you're a black guy, they might put extra weed on you. Like in my case, they planted drugs on me. They never gave me a chance to not only get caught with what I had, but they couldn't catch me with anything, so they actually planted it on us. So it's always different when you're dealing with I mean, racism is just rampant in this country. You know, I mean, whether you want to deal with it or not, racism is in this country. It is what it is, and until we deal with it in the right way, it's going to always be there.
Well, since our last interview, the rapper Pop Smoke got killed in a home invasion.
I heard about that.
I talked to him 2 days before his murder. We were planning on doing an interview that next week. I congratulated him because he was starting to really buzz. He had been on a big album with Travis Scott, and he was on top of the world. And 4 guys ran up in his Airbnb, essentially in the Hollywood Hills. And I don't know whether it was a robbery. I don't know whether it was a hit or maybe a robbery that turned into a murder. But he's now dead. And LAPD hasn't said anything at all. And this is in 2020, Hollywood Hills. All those houses around there have cameras.
Yeah. Most Airbnbs have cameras as well.
Yeah, and I believe there was other people also, but people don't really want to cooperate with the police and so forth, and it's really fucked up. You know, for example, and this is a bit of a side note, I interviewed this guy named Fredo Bang. He's a rapper out of Baton Rouge, and in a very similar situation, his best friend, this guy named G Money, this rapper out of there, we were supposed to interview him as well. We'd already scheduled the interview in that case a week before he got murdered. And Fredo Bang said that the guy that they're charging with the murder didn't do it. He knows he didn't do it. He's out on bond right now. And I said, would you, if they asked you to take the stand and testify on his behalf based on his innocence or whatever else, Fredo said, nah. He'll be all right. If his trial came up and they asked you to get on the stand and talk about him as a character witness or you as a character witness or nothing, no, you're not doing all that. You're not getting on the stand for nothing. Even to potentially keep an innocent man out of prison?
Nah, he gonna be good.
He gonna be all right?
Yeah.
And it's a very, very interesting. It's a very interesting mentality here that, like, because you don't want to be seen as a snitch or a cooperator or whatever else, you're not going to testify to potentially get someone out of doing
innocent off
life in prison because you have a career or you have a set of codes from that neighborhood or whatever else. It kind of shook me up a little bit. But
well, I mean, he'll probably have to tell who did it. You know, if he can say who didn't do it, then they want to know who did do it. So it could definitely open up a can of worms. But I mean, he could help the other guy's lawyer by giving the other guy's lawyer information that could prove that he wasn't there or that he wasn't the one, I guess. You know, it gets complicated when you get into those cases, how this case works and where this guy was and where they wasn't. But it's definitely in our community, those are definitely some standards that people still live by.
Yeah, you know, with Pop Smoke, we just do not know what happened right now. We simply, you know, he's been buried. He had a
it was almost 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's a couple of months ago. He had a lavish, you know, procession in Brooklyn in his hometown with a horse-drawn carriage and everything. And people are really starting to just forget him at this point. And we don't know what happened, but the one thing, you know, like we always, I feel like whenever you have a tragedy of this caliber, you have to, for the people who go on living, you have to look at it and say, what can I learn from this? And one of the things that he did was he was flashing his address on social media. He had a bunch of clothes that he got and he was flashing his phone and you could clearly see the address. And then he was in front of his house, and you could see the number in front of the house. And this is something that you've really been known for, is that no matter how many millions of dollars you were sitting on, you never had flashy cars, you never wore flashy clothes, you never wore jewelry. In fact, when I was talking to some people, like before our first interview, who had known about you, they said that they thought you were one of the smokers. Like you were that low key and blending in.
Well, you know, you don't want to create jealousy.
Yeah.
I mean, jealousy will make, you know, brothers kill brothers. I mean, we know that from the Bible, from Cain and Abel.
Cain and Abel, yeah.
You know, one brother was jealous of the other brother, what he had, and the love that he was getting, you know, and that made him kill his own brother. So when you look at it, one of the first lessons is, you know, try not to make people jealous of you.
Yeah. I feel like whenever you show off, you will always take some caliber of loss in the process.
Yeah.
No one's really going to be that happy for you, unless it's someone who you're sharing that wealth with somehow. And even then,
they may wish that they was the one doing the sharing.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's always been one of my policies, is to let the homies do what I do. You know, try to make them the same person that I am, try to make my friends that same person. You know, let them be able to, when we go out, let them be able to pay for the meal sometimes. You know, let them be able to take you shopping, you know. Let them be able to shine. Let them be the spotlight, you know. Don't you always be, you know, if you always hogging the spotlight, you know, people going to be like, oh, he think he, you know, even as great as Kobe Bryant was, and, you know, there was people who didn't like playing with Kobe. You know, they say he took all the shine. He wanted to shoot the ball every time. Michael Jordan the same way. You know, I forgot whose book I read, but they didn't like playing with Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah, during the memorial, when Shaq was speaking, and he told the story. He was playing with Kobe, and Kobe, I guess, was hogging the ball or whatever. He goes, "Hey, Kobe, there's no I in team." And Kobe said, "There's an ME in team, though." Yeah, that was Kobe. Kobe, they call it the clutch gene, which Jordan, they feel, has as well. But what that basically means is that they were not going to share when it came down to it. They were going to hog the ball and win the game themselves.
And the spotlight.
And the spotlight. They were the ones that's going to be known as the people who do it. And yeah, when you were staying low key and your friends were buying Rolls Royces and Ferraris and had the huge chains, did you notice how much more they were getting busted or bad things would happen to them in the process?
Mm-hmm. A lot of them went to jail before me.
Aha. And you were the bigger entity.
Yeah. We would go out to clubs and skating rings and stuff, and, you know, everybody would be around them, you know, talking to them, and you know, I would just be sitting back and like, they don't know he's my worker.
Right.
But I didn't mind, though, you know, him getting the spotlight. You know, the spotlight wasn't what I was after. I was after security. You know, I wanted more to be secure in my life, you know, where I could live well forever, you know, not for 1 year or 2 years. You know, I wanted to I mean, I deal with that right now, you know, in my everyday life, you know. People tell me, well, you should dress better. You know, you should wear this, you know. Even right now, you know, I'm dressing different because the people that I'm working with now, they went out, bought me clothes, and this how we want you to dress, this how. So I'm like, okay, I'll play the role. You know, you want me to play that role? Is that what it's going to take for us to get this deal done? Then I'll do it. But I don't believe that that's what's important. You know, I've always won because of my mindset and my work ethic. Those are the things that have always won for me. You know, if I had on a pair, well, you know, I never wear a pair of Jordans, no way. But if I wear some special, it's not gonna make me no special person. I never needed some clothes on to make me feel that I was that guy.
I feel you. It's a great way of thinking about it.
And so many other people, they do. That's how they identify themselves, because everybody else can't wear, a $200,000 watch or a $10,000 watch. Then they feel like they're bigger than everybody. But I don't feel like I'm bigger than anybody. That's why I'm taking this virus so serious, because I know that I could catch this virus just as well as anybody else. They don't care. If you get millions of views on the internet and you about to sign multi-million-dollar marijuana deals, and they don't care about none of that. This virus is just what it is. Robbers, they're looking for the guys that's walking around that they could take $40,000, $50,000 off of. The average guy, they see a guy that looks like a bum, they don't want to bother with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said that the reason why you got into drug dealing was because of the movie Superfly.
Yeah.
That one movie.
I think that movie was the first time that I'd ever heard about cocaine. I'd never heard about cocaine before.
Right, and it was some fly shit.
Absolutely.
Superfly had a little necklace with a little bit of coke in it. As he hung out in his penthouse with his women and his silk robes, he would sniff a little bit of coke. His Cadillac. I could see why someone would aspire to that, because you didn't really have cocaine addicts back then.
And we didn't have no heroes.
Yeah.
The guys who were my heroes at that time was Arthur Ashe. I wanted to be like Arthur Ashe. But that goal was so high to reach. Even Superfly, when I never thought that I would be, when I saw the movie, I never thought that I would be like Superfly.
You ended up being a lot bigger than Superfly.
No, I never thought that. But I never, if somebody would have told me when I saw that movie that I would have become a cocaine dealer, I would have been like, you crazy as hell. It was just something that, it touched me, but it was something that was out of reach. It wasn't something that I could grasp at that time. I saw that movie, I probably was like 14 or 15 years old. So at that time, a gram of cocaine probably was like $600. So it was no way that I ever would have thought that I could have became a cocaine dealer. But what I learned from studying in jail is that with our subconscious mind, we can plant things in our mind that sticks. And if it's ever allowed to express itself, then it's gonna come to action. And that's what I feel happened in cocaine. After I wasn't playing tennis anymore and I'm back in the streets, I'm starting to hear about cocaine. I don't know why, but I'm hearing it. And now I'm seeing the pimps who drive in the cars like Superfly. Their cars look like real Superfly. Well, they all mess with cocaine. So when my guy gave me that first opportunity, my mind sprung and took advantage of it.
Superfly, boom.
Superfly.
Because it's interesting, I interviewed Kevin Childs recently. He was one of the Harlem drug kingpins.
I know Kevin.
You know Kevin, right. And he told me that after watching Scarface, him and his buddies got on a plane and flew to Miami without knowing a single human being and went out there to go cop cocaine. Well, that made you guys actually go to Miami.
Again, we kids and we was ignorant as hell. We actually did. We saw the movie and we thought everything in it was real, and
right.
We ventured off to Miami, right.
So you and your friends went to Miami
looking for Al Pacino.
To buy cocaine without any sort of connections whatsoever.
Without any
whatsoever. A bunch of black kids in Miami.
With a bunch of jury on and money. That's exactly what we did.
And you guys actually managed to cop?
We actually did.
3 kilos?
Yes, we did.
They'd already been selling cocaine, but watching that movie, seeing a Spanish guy, who wasn't really Spanish in reality, but seeing a Spanish guy come to America and become a cocaine millionaire really just
Well,
set off.
that added flame to my fire too.
So when you saw Scarface, what did you think?
That I could do the same thing.
How far along were you at that point?
I probably was buying 5 ounces, 6 ounces. But when we left the movie theaters, I went to the movie theaters. It was probably about 6 of us, 6 of the homies. We all went, and my guy Ralphie. When we left the theater, Ralphie started calling me Scarface. You know, I had more dope than any of them. You know, they were only buying 8s and half ounces and stuff like that. So that became my nickname through a few of my friends. But that definitely fueled the fire that, you know, a guy could come over here with no shoes on and then he could own the whole world. Fueled my fire even more.
Yeah, I mean, you said that people are constantly trying to control your mind and your actions. And just because you're older and wiser now, you feel like you're in control of yourself. But back then, you felt like you weren't in control of yourself. You were letting these outside influences.
Absolutely. Even now, you know, I mean, we still deal with that. You know, like, I think of, why do I need to be rich? Why do I have to be successful? You know, why have I made up my mind that success to me is so important? You know, why can't I be happy with just a plain, simple house, a car that gets me to work every day? You know, why can I go and work a 9 to 5? You know, why do I have to be some special person? You know, why can I be normal? You know, why do I want my kids to be special? You know, where does that come from? You know, who put that in my head? And
Yeah, well, the only problem is that once you start experiencing those things and you go back to how you used to have it, you kind of don't want, you're not happy. After you're driving the Benz, the Honda Civic just doesn't feel the same way anymore.
But why shouldn't you be happy?
It's a tough one. Yeah. Once you live in the mansion, the 1-bedroom apartment
is
not as
this brainwashing that we went through.
Is it brainwashing, or is it just some things are just nicer once you experience them and you want to keep those things? That once you actually experience them, you're like, okay, the hype is actually real. This mansion actually is nice. This car really is.
Yeah, but you can have a little house that's nice.
I like my big house, man. I'm telling you. I don't think it's brainwashing. I think I actually like having a big ass house.
I mean, where those thoughts come from somewhere. I believe that.
I feel like there's experiences though. Like I've experienced the mansions now, so I don't need to be told to stay in a mansion. Like, you know, advertising isn't keeping me there.
We don't use the whole. You don't use the whole house.
I use most of the house.
Some people have 10, 15 houses.
Yeah, I use most of the house.
You use most of it?
I use most of the house. Yeah,
it's so much with us as human beings that we, almost like you said, we hoard.
Yeah.
You know, one of the guys that I'm dealing with in the cannabis industry, he told me he took a vacation over to Hawaii and they were charging $4,500 a day for rent.
Mm-hmm.
So he just said, hell, I'm gonna just build a house. And now he has 5 houses over there. And it's like, why do we have to have so much? You know, just for ourselves. Not to I mean, I know one of the reasons I want to get rich is because I want to help more people. I know that if the wealthier I am, the more people that I'll be able to help. And I want to be a helper. But once you have so much, why do you have to continuously get more and more and more? I mean, say for instance, Jeff Bezos. I mean, you know, like,
richest man in the world.
Yeah, you got $100 billion. I mean, why do you want more money? What are you doing with it? How are you benefiting?
$110.5 billion.
So how are you benefiting society? You know, how are you benefiting the world? How is the world going to be better because you lived? You know, I believe that.
Well, okay. Jeff Bezos has created a company that I feel has transformed people's lives. Amazon is a transformative company in terms of human civilization. I don't know whether you use it yourself, but having an Amazon Prime account and having almost any item that's ever been created be delivered to your front door the next day for free has completely changed the way I actually move and shop and everything else like that.
Well, I'm not saying that he didn't change the way goods are sold. He did that.
Which is a major thing in society.
It is.
It's really the basis of society if you think about it. Right?
It could be. It could be.
The transfer of goods and services, but goods in this case, not services, but goods, like that's the basis of the economic system. This is why cities are built and so forth. If you could be self-sufficient, if you didn't need anyone else, you could just grow your own food and have your own animals, you wouldn't need these big cities.
Right. We definitely need other people.
Yes.
In society. What I'm saying is, how can one person have so much and then we have people who don't have nothing?
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that it's his job to look out for these people or to help other people get up off the ground. But in my opinion, that's what I would want to do.
Well, I think that is his job. I think that most billionaires at some point, they realize that. For example, Bill Gates. He spends every waking moment giving his money away at this point and trying to improve society. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They've eradicated certain diseases and, like changed entire countries in terms of, the plumbing systems and so forth like that. In fact, Warren Buffett has gotten a bunch of billionaires to commit to giving away the majority of their money after they pass away.
Yeah, I think he gave it to Bill Gates.
He gave
it to Bill Gates
because he felt that's the best place for it to put it, not because that's just his friend. But other billionaires have joined in. It's like a pledge that you do that after I die, I'm going to give away, let's say 50% or 80% of my wealth and so forth. We're not just going to give it to my kids and have them live lavish lifestyles as well. I think it's up to the haves to help the have-nots. I get paid pretty well, but I also support about a dozen people. If I were to disappear and VladTV were to just go away, those 12 people would have to figure out a way to get by on their own at that point. Right. I make sure people have a roof over their head, they have food in their stomach, their families are okay. This is all me. So I feel I'm compensated fairly based on the number of people that I help as well.
Absolutely. We all will be remembered by how many people we help.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel being wealthy should basically give you or allow you to do that.
Yeah. Well, you said that you've touched a couple of $1 billion in your lifetime.
I didn't say that.
You said that.
Did I? I said I made $1 million a day, sometimes $3 million a day.
You said you've touched a couple of $1 billion in your lifetime.
Okay. If you add it up, it might be $1 billion.
I don't remember exactly what interview this was, but I'm pretty careful with my notes. You absolutely said that.
Yeah, I may have. For 2 years in a row, I touched over $1 million a day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's different than having $1 billion in the bank.
Right, like Jeff Bezos.
Exactly.
Well, it's not in the bank, but it's in stock, which is equivalent to a bank account.
Yeah.
I definitely have not touched $1 billion in my lifetime. I've touched millions, though.
I'm going to touch some billions now.
Yeah?
So they're going to get to see.
They're going to get to see?
Yeah.
Well, you said the most cash you've ever had counted was $3.2 million.
Yeah, that was mine.
How much, this is not all hundreds, right? There's hundreds, ones, fives,
20s,
10s.
no fives.
Okay, so 20s and up.
20s and up, yeah.
How much room does that take? So it was all in one place?
Yeah, on the living room floor. That was one of my bargaining tactics. I would put the money in a pile and I would invite my suppliers over to the house to see it.
So here you go. This is what I'm working with.
Yep.
And what effect did that have?
They wanted it.
Okay.
They knew that I was going to spend it that day. And they knew that their cut was going to be What I used to do, I used to figure that out of a $3 million cut, they were at least going to get 100,000 out of each $1 million. So they were going to get about 300,000 out of that. So what I always wanted them to do was maybe cut 50,000 out of their 300 and leave it with me. And that's how I used to do it.
Yeah, I mean, cash is king. That term's going to be around forever. You throw a bunch of cash at somebody right then and there, as opposed to, if you offer someone 1,000 cash right now or 10,000
in the future,
they'll take that 1,000.
They're going to take that 1,000, most of them.
Right. Like when people win the lottery, they don't usually go for the payments. They want that lump sum, which is way less.
I'm different than that. So you give me 1,000, I'm going to put it on the hook.
Right.
And throw it back.
Exactly. And I guess you used to carry the cash around in duffel bags?
My guys did.
How do you handle massive amounts of cash like that you cannot put in the bank?
You just carry it in bank. You keep safes. You know, we had safes. We had these big safes that we used to have. You just fill them up. You know, houses all around the city. You know, you just drop it off.
How do you do the checks and balances to make sure that people who are watching the safe, transporting the money, don't skim?
Well, only two people had the numbers, the combination. That was me and Al.
Okay.
Maybe a smaller safe. You know, my brother David might have had the combination of that. You know, the smaller the safe, the more people would have the numbers. But most of the time, the big safes, only me and Al could open them.
Okay. How often did you have money disappear?
You mean come up missing?
Yeah.
Probably all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. You know, people used to, when I was sitting in prison, you know, I used to wonder why everybody used to want to take my pants to the cleaners.
Because there'd be money in them?
Because there's always money in them. So, you know, it wasn't, I mean, I was still young, you know, so I made a lot of mistakes.
Well, what do you do with a bunch of illegal drug money? You like I said, you can't put it in the bank. You can't.
You can buy real estate.
You can, but you got to go through other people's names and so forth. You can't just say, hey, here's $1 million in drug money. Because at one point you had 30 properties.
Mm-hmm.
You said that if you still own those properties right now, you'd be worth around $200 million.
Something like that, yeah.
And once you got busted, some of them got seized, I guess?
Yeah, a few of them.
And then some of them were on other people's names.
Yep.
And they just kept them.
Yep. Sold them.
How many properties in LA right now that you technically bought are still in someone else's name that you know?
I don't think none of them.
None of them. Everyone sold them.
Yeah.
No one kept them.
Nope. They didn't have, most people don't have a vision.
Yeah.
To see that, you know, if I would have had this property, like one I gave to the tennis coach to make sure that my kids could play tennis no matter what happened. I bought that building for $300,000. Right now that building is probably worth $3 million, $4 million.
And it got sold way back when?
I don't know.
You don't know. But you can't go get it.
No, I can't go get it.
Yeah.
But I don't really, you know, I don't really look back. You know,
I feel you.
I'm more of a forward-thinking person. You know, it's funny because I laugh, you know, at people. You know, even like I made a statement about Floyd that people, you know, they ask me about all the time. You know, Floyd picked me up, and I thought that he was picking me up because he understood my business mind. But he really didn't. You know, he was just doing it so he could get back at the rapper and, you know, and do his little do. And I was like, damn, he fooled me. I thought he was one of those that really saw, you know, my thinking and my philosophy. about business because it's something about business that I can just go into almost any business and take over. You know, for one reason though is because I don't care about the money. I'm not in it for the money. You know, a lot of people, they money grabbing, but I don't money grab. You know, I only want to take care of myself where I am comfortable. You know, I got food to eat, I got a place to stay, I can buy gas when I need to. My main thing is that I want that stick. Because if I got that stick, then I'm always in power. You know, nobody is going to challenge the man with the stick if they don't have a knife or a gun. So when I play for the stick, and everybody else is playing for the money. And so what I'll do is I'll give them the money to get the stick. Because I know even though you got the money, you can't spend the money unless you get my permission, because I'm the one with the stick. And when you play like that, it puts you in a whole nother ball game, because when you go, first thing people think, oh, he wants some money. And I'll be like, I don't want your money.
Yeah, it's about ownership.
Your money don't impress me.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed with your money. And most people don't really get that. You know, they get the, oh, I want this because I can go buy this, I can go buy that. But just, you know, one of the ways I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, on Vlad stocks, the biggest question I get is, what's the point of having a bunch of stocks if you can't cash it out? Like, what's the point if you can't go buy stuff with it?
Right.
And it's a very interesting question, because people think, okay, I get a bunch of money so I can go spend it all on a bunch of stuff that I want. But in my mentality is I just want a bunch of money to keep growing. And at the point that I cash it out and spend it, it's over. All that money has been taken out of circulation and can no longer make more money. My goal when I buy stocks is to never sell them. That's my goal. So I never sell them so they continue to make money forever. Not so I could finally buy that Audemars watch, or I could finally buy that Porsche, or I could finally get that house I wanted. Like, I will go without all that shit just to have money that's making more money, or having a business that's creating more money.
Right.
It's not about the cash out. You know, I'm not going to say I'm not a flashy person, because I have my ways about myself, but
it's okay to be flashy.
yeah, I'm not.
If that's what you want.
Yeah, but I'm not flashy like I could be flashy. I'm way. When you see me out in public, if you didn't know who I was, you would have no idea of who I am or what I represent. And that's fine by me.
Well, I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah. I mean, you're more so than I am, I feel.
I don't really need the. I don't care if people don't know me. You know,
Yeah.
like usually, I got the same jeans that I had when I got out of prison. You know, I still had those, and I feel perfectly comfortable in them. You know, if you don't recognize me, so what? If
Yeah.
you do, great. You
Yeah.
know, we take a picture, we holler, we talk some business. If we can make some money together, super. If not, I'm good with that.
Well, at one point you had 30 cars, but none of them were fancy cars.
No, those were stash cars and buckets
Right.
to move around the city and selling dope.
Yeah.
Those cars had purpose and
Yeah.
meaning.
Yeah. All of them in other people's names. And it's just so anti what you would think a drug dealer would do. When you watch Paid in Full, like, for example, I interviewed Kevin Childs, right? When he first started making money, the first thing he bought was cars. And he went into this whole story about how he got this Mercedes straight out of Germany, and it was like this weird hybrid that really wasn't available anywhere. And he said this was the absolute worst car he had ever bought, because as soon as he took it off the lot, he got pulled over. And then they impounded it, and then he tried to sell it to, I think, Wayne Perry in DC, and they shipped it over. And the guy that got it basically drove it out of the shipping facility and got pulled over the same day, so it never even got to Wayne Perry. I guess at one point, you sold the car to Rayful Edmonds.
Well, I attempted to, because I had been in DC.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
Right, it didn't. And I had shipped the car all the way down there, and because he was supposed to purchase the car. Because this was the second time the car got taken. Then it got taken in DC.
Yeah.
When I went to attempt to sell it to him. And the person literally drove it out of the storage unit, because I shipped it down to DC to put it in the storage unit for him to come look at it. And when I spoke to my guy on the phone, and he was in the process of taking it to him to look at it, he got arrested and the car got taken again.
I think you finally sold the car for 4 kilos.
Yeah, to some Dominicans.
To just like get rid of it.
I had to,
like,
yeah.
I'm done. And he said he finally just sold it for a couple of kilos to
I
one
had
of his
some
suppliers.
of those experiences too. You know, I had a junkyard. So I used to buy cars from the police impound.
Okay.
And when they had the Olympics over here, this sheik had sent his car over, you know, to ride around in it for the Olympics. Well, it got stolen from the pier. The car wound up in one of the impounds that I go to all the time. So I see the car at the impound, and I tell one of my boys who work on cars, who work on Mercedes, and he tells me, he said, oh, it got special doors and this and that, but I know who stole the parts, and they couldn't put them on another car. He said, I could probably get those parts for you for like $1,200. You should buy that car. He said the car is worth about $150,000. I buy the car for $3,500.
Okay.
It was 1 year old. So we put the car together, and first I go to jail because the cops come in, the Bearcats come in his shop while he's putting it together. So I come in and, you know, they got him handcuffed, and I was like, oh, that's my car, and they let him go and take me to jail. So I get out of jail. Then I wind up buying the cars from the sheik. I meet him in the courtroom, and I buy all the parts from him because I'm still up on the car. And then the first time I drive the car down the streets, the cops pull me over, hold me in jail for a night. I'm on my way to Vegas in the car, and they pull me over. Same way. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I interviewed this rapper named Cookie Money from San Francisco, who was a former drug dealer, and we were talking about cars, and I mentioned that I used to have a Maserati, and he said that he hated Maseratis because that was like the #1 drug dealer car.
Actually, Maserati was the car I went to jail in. It's my least favorite car.
That's your least favorite car?
Least favorite car. Actually, the police say it's the most famous drug dealer car.
Really?
Maserati, yeah.
I can see that. I had a red Gran Turismo with like a peanut butter interior, and yeah, I mean, definitely got a lot of looks everywhere I went.
Yep.
He said that he got arrested in a Maserati. Cops are constantly looking for Maseratis. It's one of those things where,
Especially if you're black.
yeah,
You're young and black, you're driving a luxury car, the cops want to know who it is. And this is back when driving while black was like really, really, you know, they were still making us sit on the curb, and I mean, it was
right. There's no cell phones recording all this. There's no body cams.
Exactly.
They could do whatever they want.
They could do whatever they want.
Your word against theirs.
So they literally took me to jail, and they didn't charge me with GTA because I would have got right out. You know, I'm like, book me, charge me with stolen car. And they're like, oh, no, we don't know if the car's stolen. We're just going to keep you for investigation. So I wind up standing in the jailhouse that night for 24 hours, which was worse than if they would have charged me with GTA. Because, you know, I'd have bailed out. My lawyer would have went to court. We'd have beat the case, and it had been done. So, you know, driving big cars definitely was a no-no to me.
Yeah. Well, you said in an interview you had 20 guys that followed you everywhere you went and would do anything you told them to do.
Most of the time.
You guys rolled 20 deep.
Yeah, if I go to a restaurant, they coming. Restaurants loved us.
I bet. With a big tip at the end, I'm sure.
Big tips, yeah. Most of the time, the waiter probably gonna get $300-400.
Yeah. Why have so many people with you? Was
That was my crew. It wasn't like it wasn't like bodyguards or nothing like that. There, it's just like
somewhat though?
Nah, not really.
Somewhat?
I didn't need bodyguards. Nobody knew me. The
Okay.
only people who knew me.
Okay.
You know,
Fair enough.
if I walked into a restaurant back then, nobody would have said nothing to me. Nobody would have asked me for a picture. They wouldn't know who I was. It was only if I went to places that people knew me. But when I went doing business hours, everybody had business deals. So this guy wanted this deal, that guy wanted that deal. So that was a way that they could do business with me.
Out in public, basically.
Restaurants,
Yeah.
basketball gym, tennis
Okay.
court. Wherever I was my office.
I mean, when you said that they would do anything you told them to do, if you told them, go punch that guy in the face,
Done.
done.
One of them would have did it.
Go shoot that guy.
One of them would have did it.
Go rob that guy.
Probably so. I mean, we didn't need to do no robbing.
Right. Well, you had a situation where a guy owed you $360,000. And there was a conversation about killing the guy. And you explained to everyone that was there, and I guess it was around 6 people, like, okay, if we go and kill them, here's the financial breakdown of what happens afterwards. You know, posting bond would be $50,000 a person, and then getting a lawyer would be about $80,000 a person, and you start adding the money together, and it's financially you have a disadvantage financially to do this rather than just let the money go. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. That's in my book.
Yeah. So you talk people out of murders on a financial basis.
Yeah, sometimes the guy really probably needed killing. But I didn't want to be the one to kill him.
So basically someone would just steal $350,000 from you and just get away with it?
It's happened, yeah.
Okay. But
more than one time.
Okay. How much money do you think people have just stolen from you flat out like that? Millions?
Millions.
Millions of dollars. Now, when you talk about the drug game, it's not just about financials though. It's like, oh, well, if you could, I heard so-and-so robbed Ricky and nothing happened, so we're just gonna go rob him ourselves also. You start getting a reputation. And this is always what you hear is the fear of letting people.
Well, not robbing though. It's a different in a robbery and a ripoff.
Same thing though, right?
No, it's a different.
Well, we heard that Freeway got.
But they wasn't gonna come with no gun and walk in my place and point no gun at me. That's different.
Okay.
Because now that becomes a threat on my life. So that's a little different than somebody coming up, oh, homie, I just got out the pen, and you hand them a key of cocaine.
Yeah, but that's not $360,000.
No,
that's a lot of keys you're talking
it's
about.
It's 30 or 40.
It's 30 or 40. Right, but 360, that's a whole.
But the guy who's got the 300 has worked his way up to that. You know what I'm saying? He just didn't come the first day you meet him and you gave him 300,000. It didn't happen like that. This was somebody you've been doing business with, and you know you got feelings for them, and they got feelings for you, and then all of a sudden, you know, they disappear. He go buy a Rolls Royce
with the money that he was supposed to pay you.
Yeah.
And you see him riding around town with that Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
Like that's my money right there. That's my Rolls Royce.
Yep.
And you would just let that go.
I couldn't kill him.
Yeah.
I know his mama.
Okay.
I know his brother.
I mean, do you threaten him at that point, saying, "Listen, if you don't," no.
Because if you threaten him now, you might have to kill him.
Wow.
Because if you threaten him now, you become a threat to him.
So he has to kill you to avoid getting killed himself.
Exactly.
And you can't go to the police and say, "I'd like to report a robbery. My 20 kilos of cocaine never made it to my shop. I want to file a civil lawsuit right now." Take him to court. Yeah, it's a bad situation all around. So what happened, like, for example, with that guy? Did he actually buy a Rolls Royce?
One did.
Okay.
One bought a Ferrari.
What happened to those guys ultimately? Are they still alive?
No, Dave got killed. They found him in the trunk of a car in Long Beach.
Probably doing the same type of shit.
Probably so. You know, once you start, you know, it's hard to quit.
Yeah, I mean, for example, when I interviewed Kevin Childs, we were talking about the whole Alpo situation. With Alpo, from his point of view, knowing him, he felt that Alpo realized that when he would do major drug deals with people, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you just kill them, you never have to pay him back. That's what happened with Rich Porter.
Mm.
That's what they think happened in that situation. Alpo owed Rich like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and it was like, well, I could just kill him.
I've heard of people that happening to.
Yeah, I could just kill him, and now I don't got to pay him back. Now 100% profit. Then he went to DC and started doing the same thing. After Rich died, Alpo started to approach you for work.
Right.
Did you have any idea that Alpo was responsible for killing Rich Porter?
You know, it was some rumors about it, but because of what I believe their relationship to have been, it just didn't make sense to me because of what I thought the relationship represented.
Right. So Alpo actually approached you for a $400,000 drug deal.
Well, we did multiple deals.
So
I mean,
that
it wasn't
was
one time. That was we
right,
just,
but
we
he was
did
doing
business.
deals of that caliber.
That's funny.
With you.
Well, yeah, with me.
That was happening during your day?
I've heard of people that happen to. You know, people that owe somebody and they kill them instead of paying them. But you know, I mean, the dope game is dirty. You know, it's tough. You know, I'm thankful I got out of it alive. You know, without having to kill somebody, without being killed, and that just made me who I am today. Why in this other business that I'm in right now, that I'm just so much more sufficient, able to thrive. You know, when and I said this before that once these street guys start doing business, because you know you mentioned Bill Gates earlier. If you'd have told Bill Gates that somebody might kill him for doing his business, he would have quit.
Yeah, probably.
But there's so many guys from the street that even though they know their life is on the line, their freedom is on the line, they keep going.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a different level of tolerance.
Right.
Not only did I know every time I went and did one of those deals and I put my $3 million on the floor, not only did I know that my money was at risk, I also knew that my life was at risk as well.
Right, because they could just shoot you in the head and just walk away with that $3.5 million.
Exactly.
$3.2 million.
Exactly.
Why go through all this fancy drug dealing and kilos of cocaine and distribution and moving it around? I could just shoot Ricky in the head and just pack this up in my van and call it a day.
Exactly.
The end. He's just a drug dealer. There's probably not going to be a huge investigation.
No, the cops are probably going to be happy.
The cops are probably going to be happy. One less drug dealer off the street. The end. Now I got $3.2 million as opposed to the $300,000 that I was going to get. That's 10 times my profit. I remember there's an article, I think it was LA Times that did it about you, where they said that no drug lord could have been more un-Machiavellian than
What does
you.
that mean? I don't know what that means.
Well, it said that Rick preferred love to fear.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Machiavelli, his thing was to, it's better to be feared than loved. Where you were kind of the exact opposite. You didn't want to be feared.
No.
You wanted to be loved.
But always have the stick. You got to always have that stick where if you ever need it, you can pull that stick out. A lot of times people don't have both. If you got the love and the stick, it's like, come on, take this love.
But in case you don't want to take it, here's the stick. Well, you did an event one time with Frank Lucas.
I did.
It We interviewed him once. I didn't do the interview myself, unfortunately, but we have one of his interviews in the can. You said that you actually didn't like the way he operated.
I didn't.
Explain.
His attitude despised me. We were with the Nation of Islam. Farrakhan had asked us to come up, and he was in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And Farrakhan had like 4 or 5 guys with us that was guarding us and taking us around, and these guys were pushing him and in the chair and helping him, being help. I mean, they were being helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and he just kept like just saying little stuff to him, like, "Oh, you pushed my chair wrong. Don't do that." Don't. Like to me, it was like being over bossy, being over. I don't know the correct word that I'm looking for, but he wasn't polite to him. Like with me, I was like, "Man, I got 4 guys going with me everywhere I go, chefing me around." To me, it was an honor. It was nothing these guys could have did wrong.
Yeah. I use Nation of Islam for security. The FOI, I use them for certain situations. Very professional, great. It's nice to be around them, actually.
But he didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
He felt like they was below him, they was beneath him, and he talked to him like that. And I didn't appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people didn't shed a lot of tears when Frank Lucas passed away a few years back. I didn't get to meet him personally. We had one interview with him, but I guess having a movie about you makes you feel a certain type of way. When Denzel's playing you and you're now
You're a star.
you're a star. Yeah. Well, you said that you don't want enemies, you only want friends.
Yeah, I would rather have friends than enemies.
Do you have any enemies right now?
None that I know of.
Really?
No,
None?
none that I know of.
Hmm.
Maybe the rapper. He probably hates me. He would probably be the closest person that I would think of that don't like me. I mean, which he should be the one who likes me the most.
What about the cops you testified against?
Yeah, they probably do. They probably do. Well, one of them, he was on the documentary, so.
Oh, that was one of the guys that testified against you. I mean, that you testified against.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was one of them.
Spanish guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm probably sure it is. I mean, I'm not mad at them.
Yeah.
I'm not holding no. Well, you know what? Yeah, I know Steve Pollock. He hates me because we tried to get him. We tried to get him in the documentary.
And who was that?
Steve Pollock. He was one of the top cops.
The Rampart?
No, he was on the Freeway Task Force.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he got fired before the Rampart case. But yeah, he hates me. When they talk to him about trying to get him in the documentary, he'd say all kind of N-words. But yeah, they probably do. But the general cops don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't think the average cop on the street hates me.
Well, you're not a drug dealer anymore. I mean, you're a marijuana dealer, but you're not an illegal drug dealer anymore.
An illegal one.
What's the? Yeah, I love. I remember at one point I was in the mixtape game, and I was selling mixtapes, which was not exactly illegal. And I remember when DJ Drama got busted by the feds, I said, I'm done with this. When I saw his BMW being towed away, and I was hearing how his bank accounts were seized, I said, to live always looking over your shoulder, wondering when the feds are going to kick down your door, they're going to take all your money.
Going. I probably would have kept going.
Nah, not me. Nah. I was looking for something that had more of a legal
edge to it.
And also, it's like, at least for me, like you and I are different in this regard, but for me, I felt the bigger you get doing something illegal just makes the bust that much harsher. So I wasn't motivated to build an illegal business. And let me tell you, I was a partner in a major mixtape site, which I never really put a lot of effort into. My partner hated me because I would just put minimal effort into it, even though I was a co-owner, because I'm like, the bigger we get, the more we get on the radar of the feds. And when we do get busted, it's going to be that much worse. So as soon as I As soon as that happened, and I'm like, I'm just gonna focus on this video shit. I just let him have the company and called it a day.
When I sold drugs, though, I felt that's what I was supposed to be doing in life.
Yeah.
So it's like when you feel like this is your niche, then you're willing to pay whatever penalty it is. You know, if it means dying or killing or going to prison, you know, that's all part of what you got to go through.
You said something interesting. In one of your interviews, I guess you were doing a radio show in St. Louis, and I guess someone had called in. And at that point, St. Louis was like the murder capital of America.
I remember that interview.
You know what I'm talking about, right? And I guess the guy was saying how everyone who got killed that year in St. Louis didn't have a high school diploma.
Yep.
So there's a correlation between not being smart and getting killed.
Yep.
Talk about that.
Well, we were doing the interview. The guy was inside the studio with us when he said that. And he was basically saying that all the people that year had gotten killed, none had a high school diploma. And what that told me was that people didn't use their minds well enough to stop somebody from killing them. You know, they couldn't talk themselves out of the killing, or they didn't handle it the right way that it should have been handled. But for some reason, they got themselves killed. And it was a correlation with not having education that did that.
Which you fall into as well, because you didn't know how to read until what age? 28? 28, yeah.
Well, with mine was a little.
Did you graduate
different.
from high school or no?
No, I didn't graduate. I was in 11th grade though.
They just dropped out. Yeah.
You know, I just dropped out. I said, "What the hell? Why go to school anymore?"
Yeah.
Tennis season over. With mine was a little different because I learned how to think, even though I couldn't read the books. I had been around people that could think. You know, what I found out about tennis is in a tennis match, a person makes over 60,000 decisions in one single tennis match. So even though I wasn't able to read, I've been making decisions since I was like 12 years old, just strictly from the tennis standpoint. And when I heard the guy talking about it, and I thought about what he was saying, I understood what he meant. Because, you know, when you're playing tennis, I could read my opponent's body language. You know, I could see which way he turned, and I almost knew where he was going to hit the ball. So that's kind of like predicting the future, almost like what I do now. You know, I can almost read, you know, I've been kind of like quarantined for almost a week and a half, when now everybody else is just starting to do it. You know, Frisco just did it, but I believe that it should have happened a month ago. And that comes from being a critical thinker, somebody that can think ahead of the game.
Yeah, well, you know, speaking of teachers, you said that most teachers don't want to be there. That when you talk to most teachers and you ask them, did they want to be a teacher when they were younger, most of them said no. They're just doing it because
it pays the bills.
It pays the bills, and they're trying to move on to something else. And there was a theory, I remember there was a documentary I saw which made a lot of sense. Most people think, okay, you go into a bad neighborhood, it's going to have a bad school. But you could look at it on the inverse way, because when you look at the school system in general, based on the way the teachers' unions work and so forth, it's very hard to fire a teacher, no matter what they do. So most times these teachers get shuffled into these lower income schools. So you have these schools that are filled with bad teachers, the worst of the worst.
Right.
And with these bad teachers, a third or half of the students end up not graduating. So every year you have a couple of hundred young men and women, teenagers, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, get thrown, you know, basically wake up one morning in this community and they're not going to school. They've dropped out because they have these bad teachers. What are they doing? Are they joining the NBA? Are they getting jobs?
They're joining gangs.
They're joining gangs. They're selling drugs. They're robbing houses. They're doing stupid shit that kids do who have no structure in their lives. So there's a theory that the schools are actually creating the bad neighborhoods, not the other way around.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I mean, I spoke at a junior high school in Oak Cliff, Dallas, Texas, and this school is right in the middle of one of the worst neighborhoods probably in the country.
Yeah, I know a few. I interviewed a bunch of rappers from Oak Cliff,
and these kids at this school were smarter than some of the kids that I spoke to at some of the top universities. 14-year-old kids. Oak Cliff. It was Oak Cliff. The school is called Obama Academy, and this principal, he taught a different way. He brought the parents. If your kid was going to go there, because he could pick what kids go to his school. He could literally pick. So if you wanted your kid to go there, the parent had to get involved. Like every week, parents had to come there and cook lunch for the kids.
Okay, that's
they had to come there and clean hallways and clean bathrooms. So he also brought the parents involved, and just the level of those kids' sophistication was like unbelievable.
That's dope. That's dope. And shout out to LeBron with the whole LeBron Academy.
Yeah.
That's just fucking amazing. And Jalen Rose has something similar as well, who create these charter schools and free tuition. And now with LeBron, like everyone that graduates from that school gets free college tuition to like Ohio University and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's dope.
It's amazing.
LeBron is dope.
Yeah, very much so.
He's doing some dope stuff.
Yeah. Well, you said that you can look at someone and see their calling without them even knowing what it is themselves.
Some people, not everybody.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do pretty good. You know, what I try to do is find out what you're good at and then help you to accomplish those goals that you have set for yourself and what I think that you can do. It's crazy. Because one of my boxers, he was a boxer, and I talked him into stop boxing, and now he's helping me manage my fighters. And he's doing super at it. I mean, he's probably going to be one of the top guys in boxing one day, in the boxing game one day, because he's a young guy, but he's just super with the way he handles people and the way he enjoys the business. I'll say that, to make a long story short.
Nice. Well, when you go to prison, you can't read. And the first book that you do read is the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yep.
But that was not your favorite book.
Nope.
Your favorite books was The Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, and As a Man Thinketh.
Correct.
I do my homework.
That's easy though. Everybody know that.
Okay. So, and this is really a common question for me because, with the whole Vlad Stocks thing, what books did you read? What books did you learn from? What books did you learn from? So I just kind of want to break down each of these in terms of, and you've read over 300 books while you were in prison. So this is the top 1% of all the books that you've read while in prison.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I'll go with that.
What is it about The Richest Man in Babylon that affected you?
Well, I saw myself in The Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay.
I saw a guy who literally started with nothing and rose to the top of his trade. One, by educating himself about the trade, learning, making mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day, he figured out what he was doing. In The Richest Man in Babylon, one of the key components that he talks about in The Richest Man in Babylon is saving 10% of everything you earn. Mm-hmm. Well, when I sold drugs, I was saving probably 50% of everything I earned, or maybe more than that. I was living off of, I basically could live off the $1 bills that I took in every day. I took in so many $1 bills that it was some days we'd take in $30,000, $40,000 in just $1 bills. And we couldn't spend all the $1 bills. You know, we couldn't buy enough gas, we couldn't pay enough rent. So when I read in the book where they teach you to save 10% and to take the 10% and make it accumulate, like you were saying with your money.
Compound interest.
Compound interest is what it's called. I was compounding my interest and didn't know that I was compounding my interest.
Yeah.
That's how I got to $1 million. And I love that concept. And that's why I fell in love with that book. You know, I also fell in love with it because The Richest Man in Babylon was sold into slavery.
Right.
And
Yeah, I remember that part of the book.
he was able to come out of slavery and be so wealthy that even the king himself had to come to him sometimes for money to make sure that all the people ate.
Yeah, and I remember I read The Richest Man in Babylon. That was the one out of the three that I read.
That's the only one you read?
That's the only one out of the three that you mentioned that I read. I've read a lot of books in general.
You're
But
slipping.
I'm slipping? Well, I'm going to read the other two. Now that I see your breakdown. But there was a whole thing about The Richest Man in Babylon, like the guy that became a slave and ended up buying himself out of slavery and becoming rich at the end.
Literally, he could have ran Babylon if he wanted to.
Right. But before he basically ended up in slavery, he had owed a whole bunch of people money.
No, that's a different one.
Oh, it's a different one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the camel trader.
The camel trader. Okay. You know stuff better than I do. But I remember in that particular story.
I read it 25 times.
Okay, I read it once. Or maybe twice. But in that story, he was saying how when you owe a whole bunch of people money and have a bunch of debt, you're really a slave anyways. You're in a slave mentality.
Well, most people are slaves anyway because they spend all the money that they make.
Exactly.
Every time they make money, they got to go, pay Michael Jordan. They got to pay the rent man, the car guy, everybody. He said, fool, you paying everybody but yourself.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But that's not the one that I like the best. My best story is The Luckiest Man in Babylon.
Right. Next book, Think and Grow Rich. What is it about that book?
Well, Think and Grow Rich, what he taught me is that you could think your way into a position, but the best part is the mastermind group. How you take yourself and you put these different people around you that do things that you're not good at. I was doing that already, when I was in the drug game. I was already putting around, but I didn't really understand how I could target people. Like right now, I target people. I specifically go after certain people, almost like a football team goes after a running back. Now I'm going after people to put in places that I want them in. And I'm doing that consciously, more consciously than I was when I was in the drug business. So those are really the two key points that I learned. I also learned about the burning desire. A burning desire is what I had in the drug business, where I was willing to die or kill to continue to sell drugs. So that would be considered a burning desire, which Napoleon said you should never do either one of those. You shouldn't put your life or your freedom on the line, to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's what I was telling you about these other guys. Once they find out that if they put that same type of energy into these other businesses, that they're going to thrive.
Oh, yeah. If you don't wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is think about your business and check to see what happened while you were asleep and strategize based on those moves, you're probably in the wrong business. You agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
I dream about my business at night.
Yeah. And the final book is As a Man Thinketh, which I've actually never heard of.
No?
No. Tell me what it is about that book.
Well, that book taught me that my mind is a muscle, and that if I exercise it, that it would grow. Just like if I took a weight and started lifting my arm, my bicep would grow, where my muscle and my mind would grow. That our mind is a muscle, and that it's like a garden. And with a garden, if you don't clean it, weeds will overtake the garden, and you won't be able to get any fruit out of it. That it'll just produce weeds. He also taught me that you can't plant nettle seeds and pray for corn. No matter how much you pray, you're not going to get corn if you plant nettle seeds. So you have to plant seeds of fruit that can be eaten if that's what you want. You know, if you want a useless, wasted plant, then you plant nettles. Most people don't know what nettles is, but I'm from the country, so I know. A nettle is a bush that if you touch it, it itches your hand like crazy, almost like poison ivy. So you don't want to have nothing to do with a nettle. I done been stung by a few.
You got it.
So I got that out of As a Man Think. That's just part of it. I also got, he talks about a young boy being a slave. And even though he's a slave, he takes every waking moment and he's thinking about being free. So what that tells me is that if you're not in a position that you want to be in, then your mind should be totally focused on that, and you shouldn't be sidetracked with all the other things that go on around you in the world, you know.
Dope. I'm going to read these two. I'm going to read the two that I haven't read yet, and there'll be links below so the viewer can actually check them out too, as well as your book as well.
Yeah. Well, my book is accumulation of all the books I read with my experiences. I was watching today a little bit of our interview, and I was telling you about how people are really slipping on my book. But one day, you know, it's going to sell like I won't be able to keep them, you know, once they see the moves that I've been able to make by using those principles. People are going to take their hat off and say, job well done.
Great books. I read them both.
Yeah, you read both of them?
I read them both. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Antonio Moore, that was your lawyer?
Yeah, Antonio was my lawyer, kind of like a son, a little brother. For a while, we hung out every day. You know, me and him was together, like constantly.
Yeah. I've had some back and forth with Antonio.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, because he's kind of the co-founder of that group, ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves.
I never heard of it.
You never heard about this?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Should look it up. ADOS is a kind of like an online group, although they've had like little seminars and so forth. Him and this other woman started it, and it basically calls for reparations for descendants of slaves in America. And I remember last year sometime, I was thinking about reparations, and I was thinking about you know, the situation that African Americans have gone through, and I made a tweet where I said I fully support reparations for African Americans, possibly in the form of a free education, and all hell broke loose. Like, he started responding and saying that, you know, African Americans should get cash, not education, and I shouldn't have a right to speak about it, and then all their followers, and it turned into a whole big thing. And I didn't know you guys were connected somehow.
Yeah, he was like my son. I couldn't go nowhere without him.
Okay. What happened to that relationship?
Well, we still good. You know, he had to go back to work. You know, he took a job back.
He used to be a prosecutor, right?
I think he was. Yeah, he was a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a prosecutor for a while.
Right.
Then he was an entertainment lawyer. He good dude though, Antonio, and he's smart. You know, he went to a couple of meetings with me when the guys were like, "When you gonna get you a real lawyer?" Yeah, but he's opinionated.
He wasn't the one helping you on your criminal case, though, right?
No, he didn't help with my criminal case. I met him at the Foxhole one night. And he came up and spoke to me, and we just started talking. I liked that he was a young lawyer, and I was impressed, and we just started kicking it.
Yeah.
And he took our relationship and was able to build him a platform, and I'm glad to see that he's working it. He's got his radio show, and I'm proud of Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, number one, rest in peace, Roger Mayweather. We just found out that he had passed.
Yeah.
Floyd has had a rough week.
Yeah.
He
his
just
wife
lost.
passed, and
He lost his baby mother, of his first 3 kids actually, who just passed. I'd actually interviewed her before. Really, really a very, very cool person. She was talking about how she was beating up all his girlfriends.
Beat up like about 6 of Floyd's ex-girlfriends.
You beat up 6 of Floyd's.
Or 7 or 8.
Up to 8 of Floyd's ex-girlfriends. How
You know what? Because I was young and I just felt like if I would beat him up, they would leave him alone.
How bad were these beatings?
Am I incriminating myself?
I think there's a statute of limitations.
Okay.
So you're fine.
It's one of the women. I caught her in the club, and she knew that I knew that she was dating Floyd a lot and seeing him behind my back. And I waited until she got outside, grabbed her by her hair, threw her on the ground, stomped her a few times, had my friend hold my purse. We hopped in the car and rolled out.
She was like, I hope this bag is worth this ass beating.
they probably said, "Yep."
Hope these shoes are worth these bruises you're walking away with. But yeah, very sad. Floyd has had a very rough week.
Yeah.
This time around.
I know Floyd. Roger was one of his main guys.
Oh yeah, more so than his father.
Yeah.
That's who was in his
say
corner.
that. Some say that. It's some say his dad did more of the training, and Roger took over after his dad went to jail or something like that.
Right. Well, I mean, during the bulk of his career, it was Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The heydays.
The heydays. And I just want to leave it with this. You and I have talked about this in the past. I told you about how at one point I had the bright idea to buy a kilo of cocaine with a friend of mine, and he ripped me off right off the bat, and for $17,000 actually. And
it must have been the late 80s.
This was 98. He actually brought the kilo over to my house and claimed that there was, it wasn't pure or whatever. And then at that point, I just never saw my money again. And for the longest time, I was bitter about this. And it wasn't until that interview with you when you said, had he not ripped me off, I would probably have gone to prison. And it just put the whole thing in such a perspective for me that
he did you a favor.
He actually did me a favor. That $17,000 kept me out of prison, which is a price that I think most people would pay.
I would have paid it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was such an epiphany when you said it, that I really think about that all the time.
You just think if you'd have did good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's just say we flip that kilo. Let's get 2 kilos this time. Let's get 3 kilos. Let's get 10 kilos.
Then 100.
Let's get 100. This job I'm doing, that's, I was probably making $150,000 a year back then. I had my own company. It's like, why bother going to the office and doing all this heavy lifting when I could just overlook a drug deal every so often, make way more. And I've never gone to prison. My life has gone to the point where $17,000 really has no effect on me.
Well, I could imagine if I wouldn't have did 20 years.
Yeah.
Where I would be now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how how a small decision
affects the rest of your life.
Affects the rest of your life. Where, yeah, if you had gotten just ripped off the bat and you said, okay, this drug thing ain't for me.
I did get ripped off, but I didn't stop.
But you got ripped off. You got ripped off for like $100. I got ripped off for $17,000.
Yeah, I didn't stop.
Yeah, I stopped. I said, that's okay. It's not for me. And I just want to thank you personally for kind of putting it all in perspective for me, because it was something that I wrestled with for years.
Well, that's my job,
Yeah.
is to put things in perspective for people
Yes, sir. I salute you for
so
that.
that they feel better about whatever situation they're in.
I love it. Freeway Ricky, it's always a pleasure and an honor whenever you come through. Stay safe out there. The coronavirus is still spreading. It hasn't been slowed down. Take it seriously. And I'm just hoping that our next interview, we could talk about how there's no more coronavirus and we've all gotten through it. And we're a better society. I think ultimately, as a society, the whole world will improve, where people will be more careful, will wash their hands more,
Well, hopefully it brings us together.
And will bring us together.
Because if we were all one when this pandemic broke out in China, we'd have been over there helping them solve that problem and helping them curtail it.
Yeah, instead of Trump tweeting calling it the Chinese virus, which it's not a Chinese virus, it's a virus.
Yeah, so hopefully it does that for us.
Yeah, I agree. Freeway, until next time. Peace.